My name is Eric Ryan, and I'll be facilitating this conversation. So you will be able to learn about a really wonderful opportunity about strategic planning through Thrive. And so we're just going to wait here for a few moments for people to give an opportunity for people to come in. Probably about 11:02 Pacific, we'll go ahead and start. But welcome to you. As we're getting started, if you'd like, in the chat, you can put your name and your organization so that people can see who's attending. So in the Zoom chat, if you'd like to put your name and organization, that will be fantastic. And then I am also in the chat. Let's see here. I'm going to share, Kirsten, I'm going to share the link to the slides with you. And if you can share that with others, that'll be great. And you may need to share that throughout the presentation. And Kirsten, if that doesn't work for you, then you just let me know. So, well, let's go ahead and get started here. We're about 2 after, and I appreciate you all making it on time. So thank you. This is a very exciting presentation and program that we're kicking off here today. By the end of this presentation, you will have a little bit greater clarity on a couple of key themes regarding strategic planning, best practices, as well as an understanding of this cohort strategic planning program that Thrive is presenting to you all as an opportunity for the Thrive members across San Mateo County. Again, my name is Eric Ryan. I'll be facilitating and running this session as well as the overall strategic planning cohort program. I'm going to hand this over to the Thrive Executive Director, Georgia Farouk, here in just a moment, and she's going to share some insights with you, and also over to Petra, and Petra is going to share some different insights. This session is being recorded, by the way, and so for those people that aren't able to attend, they'll be able to see this afterwards. So Georgia, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So glad you're here. Again, I'm Georgia Farouk. I'm the Executive Director of Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits for all of San Mateo County, and we're so excited to be bringing this new capacity building opportunity to you. And I wanted to give you a little bit of background on how this came about and why we think this is so important, and why we think partnering with Mission Met is just really exciting. So just looking at this, okay, spotlight. And then I'm going to walk you through a couple of quick Thrive updates, and then Petra will talk about some upcoming programs. I met Eric several years back, many years back, at the Foundation Center in San Francisco, which is now Candid. Many of you may know it, and he was doing a session on strategic planning for nonprofits, but really simplifying the process. And I think we all are familiar with how complex strategic planning can be, how many stakeholders are often involved, and that it can be very expensive, frankly, and time consuming and resource consuming for small to mid-sized nonprofits. So I think it was really appealing to me to see someone who had really simplified the process, and then getting to know Eric over the years, somebody who's so passionate about the nonprofit community, you know, working nationally, but also very locally with some of our member organizations. So we worked really hard to figure out a way. First, Thrive said, okay, we need to go through the process ourselves. So this past year, we had our strategic planning process led by Mission Met and Eric. Eric met with our staff, our board, and walked us through how to use their software, which you'll learn a little bit about today. And it really was the right kind of tool for our organization. And so what we've been doing behind the scenes the last few months is thinking, how can we bring this to more nonprofits, especially now that we're working in these hybrid environments where this is more possible. So we are in right now the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative's conference room space. The reason that this is significant is that they are a key partner in this. They're going to be helping physically host some of the sessions that are not virtual. So it's going to be at this space, and there's a large meeting space in there as well. So that is exciting, and we're grateful to Chan Zuckerberg Initiative for providing this space for us. A little bit about Thrive for those of you, next slide, please. For those of you that don't know, we are an alliance, but we are cross-sector, and that's something that makes us unique. We have over 200 members that span nonprofits, business, government agencies. And then just, next slide, please. One thing that really, I think, also sets us apart is that we work hard at strengthening people, so individual leaders, organizations, and then communities through a lot of our community impact work. Next slide. And we do it through our policy and advocacy, cross-sector collaboration, and nonprofit capacity building. And this strategic planning cohort is part of that work. Next slide. I'm really excited to share. This is kind of hot off the press. We have just launched a new initiative that's been in the works for over a year now, and we had a kind of soft launch of it in April at the CZI Center, but now we have a name for it. Thrive Rise, which is Resilience in Shared Emergencies, which is a co-ed for San Mateo County. Community organizations active in disasters. They're a national network of basically within various counties and communities. They bring together nonprofits to help respond in times of disaster and emergency. And so we are finishing the process of hiring a director for community resilience, and really just keep an eye out for how you can get involved in Thrive Rise. Next slide. I will say there are so many benefits to being a Thrive member. We really are there for the entire sector. We are there to unite the voice of the sector. But if there are particular benefits that you are interested in, you should check them out on our website. Most of you are members. If you're not, please know that we look forward to having that conversation with you. And this opportunity is free, but it is for Thrive members. Next slide. And I am going to pass it over to our Senior Director of Programs, Petra Silton, who's going to talk about a few of the many, many exciting events coming up before we pass it back to Eric.
Hi, everyone. I'm Petra Silton for the Senior Director of Senior Director of Programs for Thrive Alliance. And one of the things that came out of our strategic planning a year ago with Eric Ryan was really focusing in on some significant programs. And so we, in addition to Thrive Rise, which we're very excited about, Thrive together with Climate Resilient Communities, Nuestra Casa and Rise South City, and I know some of you are in the room right now, is hosting a climate summit for the whole of San Mateo County on October 3rd. And it's going to have a strong focus on environmental justice, but everyone who's involved in climate is welcome to come. And we hope to see you there. We are continuing our work with voter outreach and education. And as many of you might know, we did not have a great turnout, even though our county had a better turnout than many counties. The primary really had low voting, and we would like people very much to be engaged. And so if you want support to be engaged, and if you want to come to these meetings, they are open for everyone. Additionally, we are going to be doing candidate forums in September for the Board of Supervisors and for our congressional race, and we hope that you join us for that. We will be having nonprofits asking the questions about what concerns them most. Another thing that concerns many of us is housing. We're going to be talking about housing elements, nonprofits, and what you can do, easy things, because we know that this affects your communities. So please join us on September 8th. That will be in person here again at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative in Redwood City. And then we're continuing with our Thrive Wellness Wednesdays. As you all know, this whole period of time has taken a huge toll on nonprofit staff. So we're making this available to all nonprofit staff. And join us on September 14th, and that will be a virtual program. And another big program that we have coming up is a half-day program, which is going to be a Thrive Community Forum, which is focusing on educational leaders, partnerships in education. So we're partnering with the San Mateo County Office of Education to really connect them, school districts, better with the CBOs that work to support the most vulnerable children in our communities. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Eric. If you have any questions, please reach out to me.
Thanks so much, Petra. If you haven't had an opportunity to work with Petra and Georgia for that matter too, they're awesome to work with and very talented in providing support to the nonprofits, as I've seen firsthand as for many years with Georgia, but in my most recent engagement with Thrive. From a strategic planning perspective, really wonderful program. So thank you. So I'm going to share my screen here in just a moment, but so my name is Eric Ryan, and I am a co-founder of a business called Mission Met. It's missionmet.com. We are focused specifically on making strategic planning simpler and more effective for small and medium-sized nonprofit organizations. That's our entire focus. I've been doing this sort of work for about 25 years. Been executive director, founded a nonprofit, various board member roles that I've played. I've been really immersed in the nonprofit space for a long time and extraordinarily passionate about this particular topic. It's been essentially a body of life work, am I saying that right? Around helping leaders like yourselves do this stuff well, and this stuff being strategic planning. And so in this presentation, I'll pull up my slides here in just a moment, and Kirsten, if you wouldn't mind putting that link to the slides back in the chat one more time for people that join maybe a little bit later, that would be awesome. So you'll have a link to the slides that I'm going to be walking through with you. Basic ideas, I hope you get some content knowledge out of this, a little bit of content knowledge that you can utilize regardless of whether or not you take advantage of the program we're also going to be talking about, but you'll get a little bit of clarity on a couple of best practices for strategic planning. And then you'll also have some good information on the program itself. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my slides here. Here we go. And you should all be able to access these also. So key outcomes, as I mentioned a moment ago, you'll have some insights on a couple of strategic planning best practices. You're going to get some good information about what this cohort program is all about, the strategic planning program, and I'll try to get through all of the slides fairly rapidly so that we can have plenty of time for Q&A and discussion. Georgia, so we have this just basically the agenda that we're going through presentation and Q&A. So I want to begin with all of you, and that the people over here on the right side of that screen are actually some of our customers we've worked with over the years. They're nonprofit leaders, executive directors, sometimes board chairs, and administrative assistants with the organizations, development directors. But some common pain points that we all feel as leaders. We got into this work because we're cause driven. We care about the kids, we care about the education, we care about the climate, we care about racial justice, whatever it is that we particularly care about. That's generally what drew us to our work. But building an organization, the strategic planning type of work, organizational development aren't typically our strengths and are not necessarily why we came to the work that we do. Not to mention the fact that we have a lot on our plate in our roles as leaders. We're juggling oftentimes fundraising and how to really do that well, establishing programmatic effectiveness. As leaders, we often, executive directors and CEOs in particular, need to spend and have to spend a fair amount of time engaging and working with and getting guidance with our board. If you are an organization that has staff, some of the nonprofits here on the call may not have any staff, maybe super micro, but if you have additional staff members, staff turnover and engagement, financial management, of course, and there's just a lot of different things that can burn you out in this work to run and lead an organization. So they're common pain points. And what often happens is we look to strategic planning, either through board members or our own understanding of like, hey, strategic planning might be a component of an overall solution for building our capacity, which is what Thrive is all about. And part of their programs is helping organizations and leaders like you build their capacity. But you often will look to strategic planning with the help of solving that. However, sometimes there's some problems with strategic planning. I've seen them over and over and over again. it can be difficult for you to get appropriate guidance for your type of organization. You may see a one-time workshop or some online resources, frankly, even some books. You might get some really good kernels of ideas, but it's hard to really execute upon that and really make it work. And sometimes, especially for small organizations, hiring a consultant can be beyond your budget. So getting guidance can be tough to make this work really well. Sometimes your board members or you may come to the table with some not so great strategic planning experiences in the past. That's very common when I'm starting to work with an organization. Part of that could be because the plan that you had was frankly just way too complex. One of my best and worst examples is a 42-page strategic plan that I came across several years ago that was designed for a $25,000 organization and one very part-time staff member. But it's 42 pages, spiral bound. It was just complete and utter overkill. And so sometimes we, running our organizations, get engaged with people with good intentions that try to help us, but it just makes it way too complex for what we really need. Sometimes you may have had experiences with plans that are created, but there aren't really clear lines of accountability for how we're going to execute upon it. And as a result of these things, the plans, despite their best intentions, end up collecting dust and not really delivering on what they planned. So this suite of challenges that we have as leaders and some of our experiences with strategic planning can really get in the way of us doing this work right. And I could speak at much greater length on a lot of these different topics that I've shared on these last two slides, but I'm just trying to help you understand, like, strategic planning, given your particular role as a leader and some historical experiences you may have had in which the strategic planning process can be hard to get off the ground to do it really well. And so what I want to do, as promised, is I want to share two seminal best practices that I found for small and medium-sized nonprofits. They aren't super sophisticated. They're just two simple best practices that I want to share with you that you can use and replicate in your own way. And then we'll get into the cohort program description itself. But these two things I'm going to share with you in the cohort, we go into much greater depth and really help to flesh out. The first one is about you as a leader and your own mindset regarding strategic planning. And this is non-negotiable. This is, if you want to succeed in your strategic planning efforts, the mindset that you need to approach this with, in my experience, needs to be, as evidenced at the top of the slide, that you approach strategic planning as a cycle. You could argue, you could substitute the word process or system for the word cycle. They're somewhat interchangeable, but the concept is that you approach strategic planning not as an event where we get together and create a plan, but instead you get together and you all create a process or a cycle or a system that is never ending. This particular graphic that we show, I'll share here reveal this graphic on the slide. At Mission Met, our particular process is a 4-step cycle we call the CAPE cycle. And you can see that CAPE is an acronym for the 4 different steps in the cycle. Do not worry about the details of these different steps at this moment. We go into great depth when we're in the program and so on around what this is. The point that I really want you to take away is that you're dead in the water with your strategic planning effort if you and your team are only focused on having a retreat or creating a plan itself without having a really thorough understanding of who's going to lead the execution component of this, who's going to do what, how are we going to review and revise, and how is this just going to, strategic planning, how is it really going to become a part of our operational DNA? Georgia and Petra, maybe when we're done here, when we're in Q&A, you can share some of your experiences at Thrive with how you all are really building the process there too, because they're sort of a good textbook example of how they've been developing that, and that's why they're getting more and more benefit from the process. But so it's not a real complicated idea, but my guidance to you is that you as a leader working with others on your team really do think and have a mindset of approaching strategic planning as a never-ending ongoing process. Whatever that process is, like I said, we have our own 4-step process. There are other processes that work too, but it's got to be viewed that way. And without that mindset and approach, people create a plan and it ends up collecting dust. The second best practice that I want to highlight, the second one of these two, is in the creation of the plan, that you really do your best to try to create the core of the plan as something very simple. I'm going to share with you a 2-section framework that we use, and you can copy this and use this as you see fit. In fact, I'm going to give you a resource at the end of this, a free resource at the end of these slides that you can use, where you can get access to see some plans and so on. But a long time ago, in working with customers, we realized that those customers that succeeded in their strategic planning efforts tended to have more simple and focused plans, because, you know, as one of the original slides said, we have a lot on your plate. When you have an overly complex plan, it's just frankly just way too hard to navigate. And so you could have a plan that has multiple sections to it, like an executive summary. You can have some, you know, different types of elements if you're creating a plan that you're going to distribute to your community or whatever. But the core of it has 2 sections that we like to talk about. Section 1 is what we call our compass, and section 2 is what we call our actions. And these two it is a Venn diagram. The two reinforce each other. The section 1, the compass, like a compass, provides you with overall direction. And the most essential component of that is your mission and vision statements. So you as an organization, you may not have a vision statement, that's fine, but you know, you in all likelihood do have some form of a mission statement for your organization. We would, if you know, in working together, we have an approach to having both a mission and vision. But regardless, the compass needs to, at a minimum, have that sort of clarity around what you all are doing and for whom, your mission, and what sort of impact you hope to have on the world, your vision, as a result of living your mission statement. There are other elements that I just revealed there. You could have organizational values in there, some key metrics, some other different things as a part of the compass. But the point is that you have a section of your plan that really calls out the overall long-term direction that you have for the organization. The second section of the plan, the actions, is where your goals live. And this is the actions that you all will take that will take you in the direction of fulfilling your mission and vision and the elements of your compass. The way that we break up this section 2 is it's broken up into focus areas, goals, and action items. Focus areas, and I'll show you an actual plan here in just a second to give you a better idea of what this all can look like. But focus areas are buckets of focus that you have in your organization. As an example, could be board development, it could be fundraising, it could be staff culture. Sometimes there are temporal qualities to that. It could be a capital campaign as an example, but they're basically areas of broad focus of which have a 3-year vision, and then key goals of 1 year or less, then support that. And then the action items could be, you know, meetings or small tasks that support the goals that then support the focus areas. Don't worry about all the details on the slide. What my main hope, my hope that your takeaway is that, you know, that you understand that you and your team need to have a ongoing mindset of a cycle and process, a component of which is having a simple and focused plan, in this case, two sections. And you could have your own format, that's fine, but simplicity is the name of the game here. I'm going to show you an example of a couple of separate plans here. And these plans you'll have access to when I give you the resource at the end. You'll have a view-only access to these particular plans. These are plans that are captured in Mission Met, my company's software. And you'll see here, this is a fictitious organization called Green Words. You can see it's a 3-year plan. This is about year 1. This is Selena and Julia are what we call the champions, a really core component that we talk about in our methodology. You can see the champion step 1 here, so it's referenced there. And in this plan, you'll see the 2 sections reflected: mission and vision, a couple of 1-sentence, very focused mission vision statements. And then section 2 are actions that I was referencing here, focus areas, goals, and action items. Here are 4 focus areas. They don't have to be these. These are what the group in this fictitious example decided was most important. There's a broad vision of what board development would look like in 3 years. And here's some goals that support that, and some action items, all of which have people responsible, start dates, due dates, the ability to measure and track progress over time. This is an example of a very simple core plan, compass and actions here. This is a little bit more involved plan, the Ohio Food Bank Network. Just as a side note, I'm based in the Bay Area. I've been here for a long time, but my business submission net, we're actually legally based out of Ohio, where my business partner is and a lot of our team members are. So that's why the reference to the Ohio Food Bank Network. Here's a little bit more involved plan that has both a mission statement, a vision statement, some values, links to an equity, inclusion, diversity statement, some key metrics. So you can, as I shared earlier, mission and vision are sort of like the core, but you can have other elements that you and your team decide are important to you to give you guidance in your compass. And then another set of focus areas. In this case, there's 5. You can see the topics, but these, unfold in similar ways with, goals and people responsible and so on. So those are, I can get into greater detail on any of this if you see fit, but the real key takeaway that I hope that you have content-wise, and these are sort of non-negotiable things that I've learned over the years in doing this work, is for you and your team to approach this as an ongoing process or cycle, and that you do your best to create a simple and focused plan, and that you can communicate easily and be able to track and measure as you go along. If you do those 2 things, those are going to be, in our experience, key elements of your success with this overall strategic planning process. With that, I want to dig into the training and coaching program itself, and I have a few slides here. Take about 10 minutes for me to get through this, and then we should have well over 20 minutes for any Q&A and discussion. But hopefully those last couple of slides reinforce some things that you really may already have known or gave you some good insights on how to make this work. So it's just what we're introducing here is a strategic planning program, a cohort program that will be made available to nonprofit Thrive members. And it's a year-long program. I'll give you the details in just a moment. That will start off with a kickoff, an in-person kickoff here in September, and then some more focused work between October and December, and then ongoing support and coaching and guidance through September of next year. So the concept here is to provide you with something that's not just a one-off, but something that's really comprehensive and also very doable and practical, and gives you a lot of time to figure out how and when you're going to do the work to do this right. So it's a group-based or cohort-based coaching and training program to help you develop your strategic planning process. And I'm very deliberate in using the word process here as opposed to just a plan. Some key benefits of which, if you do this well, we see it all the time. This leads, when you have a plan dialed in, greater fundraising success, stronger leaders, clarity of your own mission, vision, and values, stronger relationships with your stakeholders, greater programmatic focus, greater organizational culture, and you can oftentimes recruit and retain stronger board members. So those are, and reduce staff turnover. So these are the types of things that you get when the strategic planning process is really cooking well at your organization, which we would hope you would get as a result of creating and putting a strategic planning process in place. The features of this particular program that you'll get if you were to apply and get accepted is it's practical, it's adaptable strategic plan. You would learn the 4-step CAPE cycle process that I was just referencing a little while ago, something you can use indefinitely. You'll get one-on-one coaching from me. Petra and I will do some tag teaming on some of the way that we support the full body of participants, some group coaching work. You'll get access to an online strategic planning course. I'll show that to you here. Where I am is in the software, and I'm going to what we call our toolbox, and you get access to our strategic planning course, which has all of these little bullets here are different modules in the course where you can learn more and watch videos and get worksheets on mission and vision statements, measuring goals, walking through how you create a plan, getting a real fundamental foundational perspective on strategic planning. So you get access to all of those different resources within the course. You'll get a 2-year subscription to the strategic planning software. The software is designed specifically for not small nonprofits, small and medium-sized nonprofits. We at Mission Met designed it. It wasn't designed for a corporate and then watered down. It was designed from the ground up for people like us, for strategic planning group. And the number one piece of feedback we always get is it's simple. It's a real simple, easy to use software tool designed for smaller organizations. You'll benefit from each other if you're part of the cohort. The relationships you develop as part of that cohort may be, quite honestly, the biggest benefit that you get from this. When I've participated in cohorts like this myself in the past, those relationships that I have for years are some of the most biggest benefits that I get. You get a certificate that, for your strategic planning work that you can post and share with others. And the value itself, it's free to you to participate if you get accepted in the program, but all the different things we're offering is around $6K. So you can think of this as like getting a grant in a sense for you and your team to apply to your strategic planning efforts, but it is free to you. The way the program will work is you have 2 to 3 leaders. Absolutely, you cannot work by yourself. You have to have at least 2 people, 2 or 3 people from your organization. We won't accept anybody that's just going to do this on their own. As I referenced a moment ago, 1-year program. We have a kickoff in person scheduled for September 22nd. If that becomes problematic for some reason, then we'll address that, but that's what we're currently planning on. October through mid-December, we'll have group coaching sessions every other week and some 1-hour individual coaching sessions for you. And then, as I referenced earlier, January through September of next year, you'll have additional support. So the entire intention here is to really give you everything you need for you to be able to do this work well. And we'll keep it as simple and practical as possible, and that you can layer things in greater complexity as you see fit over time. In terms of a time commitment, there's the 1 day currently scheduled for September 22nd. Over the months of
Eric, sorry to interrupt. It's actually September 24th.
Like I said, the whole time
September
here.
14th.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. So that's okay. So September 14th here.
For the in-person kickoff.
Yeah, so I'll go in here and make that that detail. I'm not sure I have this September 22nd on there, but that was my error. Sorry. So thank you for catching that. And like I said earlier, Petra's awesome. So thanks for catching that. That's an important one. So and Kirsten, you may want to check and see if the application references the 22nd, and there also that application may have the wrong day in there too. So time commitment 1 day, a couple hours per week on average, October through mid-December, and then a couple hours per month for months 4 through 12. I mean, this is highly variable based upon your needs for what you do, but this is a commitment, and it's not a gigantic lift, but it is a lift to do this work, and you all are busy. So what we're looking for are people that are willing to invest some time in that. You have access to the slides, but this is a testimonial from a program participant from a prior program, and you can see the emphasis on simplicity that this particular person, Megan, really emphasized. So that's a little bit about the program. We'll highlight the application process. There is an application form if you have access to the slides. Let me also put that particular link in chat. So people can access that. I think I can do that now. So there's a link that I just stuck in the chat for the application. Let us know if you have any issues with that. And we can follow that up. We'll provide that link and follow-up materials too. The application is due 2 weeks from today, the 23rd, and we'll make selections by the end of that week, Friday, the 26th. And up to 10 organizations will be selected through the application. So I'm going to give you this next thing, and then I'll open it up for Q&A. Within the slides here is a link to a PDF of my book on strategic plan, and it's really about how to execute a strategic plan is really what the book is all about. But you'll get with this link, you get a free version of the book, and on page. So this is the free version of what the PDF looks like. On page 91 of the PDF, which is also page, I think, 105 of when you look at it as a PDF, you'll see a way you can get access to a whole series of resources here. some sample plans, graphically designed plans, and so on, some checklists and so on. So you get access to a variety of resources, regardless of whether you or not you apply for the program or participate, but you get access to this book and those free resources no matter what. So please take advantage of that. And I will also, if you can't access these slides, I'll go ahead and put, let me see if I can do this a little better here. I'll put this link in the chat also so you can get it there. So that last link is a link to the book. So with that, we do have a little over 20 minutes. I will stop my screen share, and Georgia and Petra, if there's anything you want to emphasize or reinforce from this, and then we'll open it up for anyone who has any questions.
I just want to let people know that all of this information will be coming to you in a follow-up email. So if you didn't get the links or whatever, don't worry about it. It will come in the mail.
Great.
Here's a copy of Eric's book. I don't know if you can see it, but I think this.
Yeah, it's kind of.
But yeah, no, Eric, you had asked before about just reflecting on our process. I think the number one thing that's been a huge benefit is having a compass throughout all of our decision making. We had a board retreat in June, and where we reflected on the year and on our progress. And what we realized was that having the kind of the high level plan in our mind, even at all times, was really effective for kind of keeping the board and the staff really in sync. And then we also, we've made a lot of changes and we've had a lot of growth in this last year. So being able to always make sure checking against our strategic plan when we were making big decisions, strategic decisions, and making sure that, we had alignment was really valuable. We still have some things to work on in terms of making sure that we take the time to do the assessment every month and making sure that we update the software. I think, just like other nonprofits, we're often pulled in many directions. So having the discipline can be challenging, but I think that's where like a cohort and some accountability might be helpful. And so we're still kind of working on the discipline aspect of it, I would say.
And the one thing that we found great with Eric's program was that, like he said, it's not one person. You always have at least two people who are champions of the strategic planning. And I think that was one of the kind of keys to our success. Thank you, Kirsten, for being our champion.
So thank you, Georgia and Petra. So the floor is yours. You can unmute yourself, raise your hand. I see some notes that are coming up in the chat box here. Let's see, I'm reading something from Mary. Basic question coming from smaller is embarking on us work. Should we be thinking strategic plan or plain old business plan? Or can it be kind of a hybrid of both? That's a really cool question, Mary. I say it's cool because I often wish people would ask that and they don't. So thank you. What I would say is if you are embarking on this work for the first time, one of the core strategic questions, and it's sort of a differentiation between a quote unquote business plan versus strategic plan, is what is your revenue model? And that is sort of what, in the business world, what is their sales model? Well, how are they going to generate revenue? That's sort of the, their marketing strategy. How are they going to let the world know? Those are sort of some components of a business plan. And in the nonprofit space, it really does reflect back to your revenue model, whether that's, grants, donations, earned revenue, however you all bring money in the door would be a core component, would be my guess, Mary, in your situation, which could become a component of the strategic plan. What I would emphasize in your question is not so much, and this gets back to one of my first slides, what I would hope that if you were to participate in this program is the nuance of whether or not you had a business plan, quote unquote, or a strategic plan is less important than the fact that you and your team have a process for measuring, tracking, using whatever type of plan it is. That's as a smaller organization getting started with this, if you and your team drink that sort of Kool-Aid, planning Kool-Aid, and you really do that work, that whatever the type of plan you have is to a certain degree irrelevant, because you are going to be building the team's muscle that Petra and Georgia were just talking about a few moments ago to follow through and measure and track the plan. That said, I would say that one of the components that you did reference, I would imagine that the revenue component of your strategic plan would probably need to be a key part of what you would need there. And I can address that a little bit more, but there's a really great question. There's one other question here in chat I'm going to jump to from Jessica. Thank you, Jessica. Did this opportunity include creating a fund development plan or compass and action implementation section? So this is about, it's another good question. We are not going to be creating, the program does not walk you through creating a fund development plan. This program helps you create a broad strategic plan, of which the fund development plan is a component. So you may have some board development planning that's a piece of that, fund development piece, staff development, whatever the programmatic pieces that are what we call, as I referenced earlier, the focus areas. So I'll help you think through and structure that based upon your own analysis. That said, because as a cohort, many of you are going to be talking about and have needs around fund development or board development, those topics are going to be on the table, and we will be talking about them in a little bit more organic way over time when we have one-on-one coaching. Jessica, as an example, if you have some specific questions around fund development, I can definitely assist with that, given all of, and perhaps Petra too, to the degree that she's engaged in some of that follow-up, we'll be able to address some of those questions, some of those more content-based questions that are a part of your plan and your planning process. But this is not specifically designed for a fund development conversation. But part of one of the benefits of the cohort is you all will be sharing different ideas, and we'll be able to learn from each other, excuse me, around that too. So Mary and Jessica, if you have follow-up questions, feel free to either raise your hand and put that out there or put it in the chat. But those are good ones. Other questions that people may have? Okay, thanks, Mary. Some additional questions about the program itself, the components of it? Since there's no questions coming up, one of the questions you may have, because this has come up for before, is who should participate in this? My experience is that the CEO or executive director is best suited to be one of the 2 or 3 people. What might come as a surprise is the second person. I have often found that an administrative leader or an administrative assistant can be a great person to participate in this process alongside the executive director. I'm not saying it has to be that, I'm not saying that at all, but if you're wondering who might be a good person, sometimes that's a great person. It provides a great professional development exercise for that person. And B, that administrative person, as they learn about the strategic planning process, they can serve in concert with the ED or CEO to help manage the process. Oftentimes, and Georgia was referencing this earlier, Georgia's the executive director. She's got a lot on her plate. It's sometimes hard to pause and put the brakes on and really look at some of the strategic items. If she has a partner that is more management oriented or administratively oriented, then that partner can tag team with Georgia and sort of carry that management water in a way, like they really, the administrative piece of this. And so don't think that it has to be a board chair, for example, in concert with the executive director. It could be, but you could get a lot of benefit by having one of the 2 or 3 people in the program be someone that's more administratively oriented, because they will help to make sure that the plan and the process actually happens. So
Eric, there's a question around the criteria and selection process. Do you want me to just quickly talk about that and then you can add to it?
Sure, and
yeah,
I can bring up the application on my screen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of self-selection because this is very time intensive. So there's a group here today. And I think you're gonna have, first of all, you're gonna get a sense of whether this is a fit for your organization. And then the big thing is, can you allocate the time? So assuming that you move forward with the application and that you meet the basic Thrive criteria around Thrive membership and, budget size, approximate budget size, and some of the other things. The things we'll look at are, I guess, more of the essay questions as determining factors, which really talk about the need and the level of commitment that you're ready to kind of make to this process, because it does require some time. So that is how Thrive and Mission Met will be determining the cohort. Does that make sense? Eric, do you want to add to that at all?
No, I'll share my screen and bring up the application itself. It's a very simple application. We'll have a link to that, but just some information here about when it's due. It's a Google form, some basic organizational information here, so really straightforward. Your roles. And so on. And then this third section is about the co-champions. We use the term co-champion for those people that are championing the process alongside, one of the leaders. So, and that's referenced there. So this would be for the additional information for that one or two additional persons and their emails. It looks like we have a space here for a co-champion number 4. So one of the questions in the chat I'll reference here in just a minute. And then here are the key questions. Explain why you personally and professionally want to be a part of this program. What do you hope you and your organization gets out of the program? And why is this particular strategic planning a good program, a good match for your organization? So this will be used as some of the basis to one of the questions in chat with your responses to these questions. We will really review, and we are looking for, thoughtful responses, obviously, on an application to help us discern whether or not you're a good match for the program. There's also a section here around an agreement. It's really straightforward, but basically one of the key components of this is that for you to participate means that you're engaging with a group of other organizations. And if you participate but don't really see yourself in that role, and you're not able to, for whatever reason, put the time into this, then please don't apply, quite honestly. We're looking for organizations that are really willing to commit to this and to do this well and to support their other members of the cohort. That are a part of that. And it may just be a matter of timing. This might all sound good, but it may just not be the right timing for you, which is totally makes sense too. But in any event, this is the application process. And a little bit more depth that I'll share is, in addition to this application, we'll be looking at the mix of organizations, and if we feel like it's the right mix of organizations that could lend itself to being a strong cohort. There was a question in the list in the chat about, could we have 4 people participate? Petra and Georgia and I can discuss that some. As of right now, I'm going to say we're going to keep it at 3, but it's not an absolute, fast rule that it has to be only 3. But so include that name in the list that was in the application. And as we dig in, we'll take a look and see if that makes sense, given our mix. So we just want a small team. That's really what we're looking for. And we can, so if you have a need for a 4th person, then let us know, and then we'll address it a little bit later on.
And this is something we're hoping to offer regularly, depending on kind of the success of the pilot. And it's something that the Thrive team is going to be getting trained in. So it's possible through philanthropic support. So I guess in the application as well, in the part about why you want to be part of it, we understand that strategic planning is expensive, and we're really grateful for philanthropic support that makes this free for members. So if that's, you know, if that's part of why you're applying, because this is really subsidized and you wouldn't be able to do strategic planning without a program like this, then indicate that in the application as well.
So Tara and Jessica, you asked some questions in the chat. Hopefully we just address those, but let us know if otherwise. And then Amy in the chat asked about La Piana's roadmap model. So what we'll be doing, Amy, is providing you with a format for a strategic plan that I referenced earlier. There are definitely overlaps conceptually between La Piana's work and what we do. And so some of the concepts that you'll have already learned or put into place will flow over, but we will be following a very specific two-section format to the plan that has some flexibility within that you can integrate some different ideas to. But we'll be, and others may have some other strategic planning experiences where you can bring your own nuances in. But we'll be utilizing a two-section plan format, and we'll really be focusing a lot on the follow-through and the execution of the overall process. One thing I learned a long time ago is there's no one way to do this. We at MissionNet have our way that we've crafted, and we have some sort of parameters around how we do that, and that we utilize the software and so on. There's different ways of doing it for sure that work really well. And I'm actually a fan of La Piana and their work. They're very good consulting firm here in the Bay Area. So. Yeah, and in fact, to Amy's chat, if you want to learn more about other sort of strategic planning models, you can look up La Piana's books on Amazon. He's really great, David La Piana. So okay, let's see, we've got about 7 minutes left here. I want to make sure anybody that has questions are getting them answered here at all. Okay, so within the application, there is an email, my email address. So as you have any questions, you can reach out to me when Petra and Thrive follows up with everybody with the video and so on. Petra, do you imagine that you'll also have an email there for people to follow up, or do you just want to direct them to me?
They're welcome to reach out to me as well.
Okay.
Everybody on this call has my email already.
Good. Okay, so Petra's great to connect with then also, for sure. So, unless anybody has any additional questions then at all. Petra, when do you think the email and the video and everything will go out? In the next couple of days, roughly?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. And if you're going through the application or you see anything, do you have any questions about whatsoever, or something comes up for you afterwards, then feel free to reach out to me or Petra, and we'll do our best to help you out. So, and thank you, Dr. Anna and Maria and Jessica. Let me see if there's a question in there. Okay, looks good. And note also that within the chat earlier, we put that link to the book. So at a minimum, you can download that or save that as a link and get those resources too. So hopefully that's really useful to you too. Okay, Georgia and Petra, I hand it back over to you to wrap it up.
Thanks, Eric. We're just super excited to be working with you on this, and excited for the year ahead. And I think what you said is the most exciting part, which is that we're looking forward to being in community with this cohort and launching a great strategic planning program. So thank you, and thanks everybody. And we'll see you at the next Thrive meeting soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.